Okay, so once you have sketched out your shoe pattern on the tape and flattened it, next thing to do is to lay out that tape on a flat piece of paper like this. Now, an old calendar will be excellent for doing this. Next thing to do will be to mark out your lasting allowance. But before we go ahead and mark out the lasting allowance, let's just cut out the excess. We mark out the lasting allowance. But before we even do that, we will see this curve right here. We need to straighten it at some point. But before we do that, we'll have to generate two different straight lines. So the first straight line is this one, starting right at the van point. Then the next one is this one, starting again at the van point and proceeding towards the faces. So we would have to find, on some lasts, this last is pretty much straight. On some lasts, they are quite steep. So you would have much work to do in that regard. But thankfully for this last, there's not much to be done. But nevertheless, we would have to straighten it out one way or the other. But before we straighten it out, we'll go ahead and give ourselves, let's say, a lasting allowance. 2 cm, 2 cm, 2 cm. This line, we just extend it all the way here. So we have our 2 cm. So we just connect all of this. Just add some stitching allowance at the back here. This is a stitching allowance. And for here, we'll probably just add some stitching allowance or folding allowance as well. Usually just use half a centimeter, but I'm just eyeballing this and giving myself the folding allowance by eyeball. If you want to measure it, that's okay. Now, having done this, remember the lines that we drew at the time. We cut out the entire pattern along that line. So this is what we have. So now, to straighten out this curve around here is called springing the vamp. What we do is we take the distance along the vamp line, you measure this distance, find the center of it, and then use that as your springing point. I'll show you what the springing point is and what it does. So let's measure this point. So this gives us 10 cm. Half of 10 cm is 5 cm. So let's use here as our springing point. What you do, you mark 2.5 centimeters away from that springing point and just cut everything else below it and everything else above it. So now we have a dislocated pattern sort of. Next thing to do, you just take a piece of paper, lay it flat, mark out a straight line. Now place the part of the pattern that corresponds with, that goes towards the facing on the straight line. place your point on the hanging point and just bring the rest of the pattern to the point where it aligns with that straight line. Then you hold it, don't allow it to move, and then with a tape you secure it in place. So now you have a pattern that has a completely flat edge to it. This way you're almost done. Next thing to do is to cut the notches from which you're going to trace out different parts of this pattern, and we will do that shortly. So you follow the lines, you cut slots. Being careful not to cut your slots into places where it will affect the entire structure of the pattern. Also paying serious attention to the places where you have curves. Straight lines are easy to cut. Curves, on the other hand, are not quite easy. So I think we're basically done with the form of what we're looking for. The only thing remaining to be done is to cut out the pattern pieces. Okay, so let's cut out the first part of the vamp of this simple derby shoe. So you align the straight line. This point right here is to let us know where the facing starts, where the facings are stitched together on the vamp. So just cut it out. And then that's your vamp. So let's cut out the potters. I figured that, look, the potter is the same on both sides, so there's no need to cut out two different patterns. I could just cut one and flip it over and use it for the next one. So I'm just going to cut one. That's what it is. This right here will be the folding allowances. You can add your folding allowances all the way around. So this, I think one more notch here to let us know where the curve is. So this, in a nutshell, is the quarter, and that's the vamp. So you see, these are your lasting allowances that will go. Let me focus it very well on the camera for you. Made a big mistake. The folding allowance, the stitching allowance should be on the vamp for this shoe and not on the quarter. So what we will do is we will cut out this. That's a big mistake. Sorry about that. So you have this. This is your folding allowance. That means we would have to add a stitching allowance to this side. And in order to do that, that's just a simple matter of adding masking tape to this part and getting it done. So that's the final outcome. I added masking tape to put the stitching allowance on the vamp, then cut out the stitching allowance which I mistakenly put on the quarter, and that you have it. I think what's remaining to be done is to add the eyelets for the lace holes right here. You could leave that till when you mark it out on the leather, and you can add that at that point.